What is up? Welcome to the One Shot Effect podcast. This is the 10th episode, and today we got a special guest. We got Finnbarr Connors, a YouTuber, an Instagrammer, but more than anything, an online coach, a man that helps people drop their bad habits and get jacked. Thank you for being on the podcast today.
Yes, sir. What's good, Felix? I appreciate you having me on here.
Yeah, it's a privilege. I think I first found you through your YouTube channel, and we will link that in the description below. But maybe a good question would be, how did you get into YouTube? How did you get into posting YouTube videos?
Yeah, so I started about 2 years ago. Basically, I was at a position in life where, I had quit my job. I was working a 9 to 5 in finance that gave me no fulfillment. I was kind of messed up. I was doing all sorts of drugs at the time. I had a little bit of an addiction that was going on, and I didn't like where my life was headed. So everything kind of came to a crash at one point. My car broke down, the whole engine blew out. Just and I found myself back on the drugs. I found myself in a position where it felt like really nobody had my back, and not to, play the smallest violin for myself, but it was just a rough position in life for me. And I knew that something had to change. So I made this massive change. I quit my 9 to 5, which I guess in retrospect wasn't like a lot of people go through career changes. So what I did is not by any means special, but it was what I needed at the time. And at that point, I made the decision to quit that job, pursue personal training just as something to tie me over until I could find a better career. But then I found out quickly, oh, this is what I can do. So at that point, I started making YouTube videos. It was entirely fitness related. And man, I'm fucking embarrassed. I really wanted to talk more mindset and self development, but I wasn't at a point in my journey where I felt like I was qualified to, and I was just not fully confident in myself. So I made fitness content and I started doing it, and I realized like this was the creative outlet that I needed all along. Where before I was putting it into these drugs, I was using my vices to escape the reality. Whereas now, once I started the YouTube channel, I was creating that reality. And ever since then, it's just been on go. I've committed to this path.
I really resonate with that. Yeah, there's something really awesome about putting content out there. And I really do feel like the video is the new notepad in a lot of ways, you know? Like, you can draw something on a piece of paper or you can video your vision and just like, I mean, video has taken over the world and even short form video, maybe even more so. But I think there is a craving even just for podcasts and even longer form videos like the ones you do. But even just like, yeah, such a privilege to make that content. And it's just like, it's a journey. Yeah. And I resonate with what you're saying. Like at the beginning, it's easy to, or your kind of journey of filming more workouts to more filming your advice. And it's also it's kind of a journey of, it's like anyone could be in that gym video, but not everyone can give your advice, right? It's like it's leaning into who are you and like what makes Finnbarr Connors, right? And like what can you
Right.
bring to YouTube or what can you just bring to the world? Like and like how can we bring our best authentic self, right?
100%. It's almost like my journal. It's like I just kind of, a lot of me talking is me just letting people know what's going on in my life, being open and authentic about it. And like I notice at least a lot of times when I try and focus on like, all right, let me give this advice for you, it actually comes across as less genuine as if I just say, this is what I'm doing, this is what's worked for me, this is what it's almost like people resonate with that more, and that's really what helps them. So it's kind of weird. It's almost like my YouTube channel is my journal, and people get value from it. You mute. I think you're muted, bro.
No worries. I was saying, yeah, there's so definitely a lot of value in journals, and just, I mean, even if you look at Marcus Aurelius, I mean, that's a journal that people are like still looking at today. And I mean, that's to me a big part of even my YouTube channel is like one day, me and you, we're gonna be gone, but our YouTube channels will live on, And wherever we may end up in life, our YouTube channels will leave a lot of clues of how we ended up where we end up, right?
for sure. Yeah.
What inspired you to start your fitness journey, by the way?
So I've been working out for about 10 years. I started when I was 15, I'm 25 now. And basically when I started, it's always for superficial reasons, uh, get more women, basically feel more confident in myself a little bit. But really it was just like, all right, I'm going to get more women. I want to feel like I can defend myself. And I fell in love with it because being a really skinny kid, like it gave me a new sense of self-confidence, put on muscle fairly fast. And I figured out what I was doing because I'm the type of person where if I find something that I like, I, I guess you could say I almost have like an addictive personality where I go all in. So I went all
Yeah.
in on it, built a ton of muscle, like transformed who I was, not only physically, but over time mentally as I started to let go of like, all right, I'm not even in this anymore just for getting women or for defending myself. I'm doing this for my mental health. I'm doing this because I like the person that it's created out of me. But I fell off, I was still working out, but I fell off with a lot of those healthy habits when I was in college because that was like my first taste of basically the degenerate lifestyle that a lot of people in college and even people in their 20s getting out of college are living nowadays, at least over here in the States. I don't know where it's like where you're at, but I fell into that lifestyle
It's
and
pretty
coming from like a
similar.
more, yeah. So I fell into that lifestyle and just coming from like a strict household, like I fell in love with it. So during that time, I fell off with all my habits. I started eating like shit, started doing drugs, started drinking, smoking every day. And then basically it all led to an overdose. And then, around the time I started my YouTube channel is when I'm like, all right, I want to recommit myself to this because I see what it did for me in the past. What would happen if I just spent the next year getting my body right, getting rid of some of the lower and using that as like a catapult to get me off the drugs.
And did you have like a time frame in mind? You were like, I'm just gonna give this like a proper try, like what you're expecting?
I was just like, I don't even
Like,
remember to be honest. I think I might have said like, let me do this for a year. Let me just go all out and be disciplined, start taking cold showers, and let me just do this for a year and see where it puts me. But I think maybe 6 months, 9 months into that, when I started to see the results, I was like, I'm going to continue doing this YouTube until I make this a full-time living and until I can just live freely and independently and help other people doing so. So whatever time frame that
hell
fits.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, I definitely relate to you with that all or nothing mindset, you know. It's like as soon as you find like I've done a lot of different things in my life, checked out churches, and like see that like works for some people, like that blows some people's world, that's their thing, and they go every week or what have you. I've went done a lot of meditation, like retreats. But what I've learned with it, I think it was at one of the I did a Vipassana retreat. It was like a 10-day silent retreat. And what they say there is they're not a cult. They're like they're well, they're obviously not a cult, but they're not a religion, and they don't care what religion you are. But more than that, what they say it's about they say try different things. That's fine. But when you find something that works for you, you need to go deep with it, you know? I think me and you are like that. As soon as we find our thing, so we're going, you know?
Fact. That's dope, though. 10 day silent retreat. That sounds tough, but I feel like that'd be very helpful.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about it even today. Like, yeah, there's definitely like some of my happiest moments there, you know? It's just that simple living in a lot of ways. But it's also the stripping of the ego. Like, one of the things is you can't pay for the retreat. You can only donate afterwards. Like, if you felt like you had a good experience or whatever. But part of that means like you can't, there's no ego with like the meals. Like, you don't speak. You get what they give you. And like, if you don't like it, you didn't pay for it, so you can't really complain either. You know what I mean? But it's not about that. But like the food was really good, but unrelated. But it's like you're there. You're just there to work. You're there to like meditate 12 hours a day. That is rough on the body. Like not like exercising too much, like sitting like 12 hours a day. I personally think like maybe yoga would like be a nice addition to it. Like I've been getting more into yoga, and like my dad recently said that like yoga is preparation for meditation. And that really resonates for me. It's like yoga gets you in such a chill like state.
Mm, interesting. Yeah, I definitely notice like when I meditate, the first thing that happens to me is if I do anything more than like 15 minutes, my lower back just starts to kind of scream at me. But then it's weird because that only happens when I meditate. If I'm there doing work and I could be sitting there for a half an hour, 45 minutes, and my lower back is not necessarily screaming at me. But when I tune out all the noise,
Mm.
that starts to happen. And I think a lot of that, what I've learned recently, is that's like your body kind of, it's like your unconscious mind basically telling you to stop. Like, oh, go get that hit of dope, go work on something. And I've learned that I got to kind of push through that.
Yeah, one of the biggest learnings from the Vipassana meditation retreat is nothing lasts forever, good or bad. Everything is temporary. You know, the high highs in life, the low lows in life, nothing is going to last forever. And even that back pain is a good example, like especially in the Vipassana. You will have pain in the body, but it's about observing that pain and realizing it's not going to last forever. And eventually it subsides. And then you realize it's your mind just playing these games, you know? But I think there is also potentially like your mind could also be like telling you like, hey, maybe you're having like some lower back issues or whatever it might be that you only notice when you're actually like fully present and not distracted by work or something. But I don't know. It depends on the case, I guess.
So I think it's a bit of both for sure.
So yeah, you've been on YouTube 2 years now, and I'm sure you've got some positive comments and some negative comments. What has been your like journey with feedback? And like you say, it's a journal, but it is a public journal. And what's like your thoughts on that public side?
I'm somebody who, no, I'm not going to say that. But I had a period in my life where I felt like I didn't really have anybody and I felt kind of isolated. And even when I was around people, I felt isolated. And this was a lot of this when I was in college doing a lot of drugs, especially during like COVID shutdown. I remember sitting in this basement, in a studio apartment, and just during that period of time, like I had nobody. And I always wished that like somebody would reach out to me and this and that. And like I often thought during that time, like, should I start some sort of business? Should I start drop shipping? Maybe I should start a YouTube, but I was just too afraid to do it. So when I first started my YouTube, it was almost like this enormous weight was lifted off my shoulders. And as I started to do it more and more, I became more comfortable with sharing more things. And it got to a point where I was like, I don't give a shit. Who knows of anything? Like I don't care what you know about my life, as long as I could get this stuff off my chest and feel like I'm heard or have some sort of creative outlet, then I'll be good with it. And whatever people say about it, like, is less important. But obviously, that feedback still gets to you sometimes, positive or negative. And sometimes the positive is even worse because, like we were talking about before you started recording, was when you have something, a post that does well, or maybe you get a little bit more vulnerable and then it performs well, you're like, I got to do this all the time now. And then it becomes not authentic. It loses that genuineness to it. And then you continue to put out that type of content. You're like, why is it not working? It drives you a little bit crazy. So you got to keep that ego in check and not let yourself be too influenced by that. And likewise with the negative comments, I experience a lot less of those. At least I'm not super huge on either platform, but I definitely experience a lot less negative comments than I do positive comments. But with the negative comments, it's just like, you just gotta take it with a grain of salt. And that's pretty cliche, but yeah.
And I think it's just empathy. Like I'm just realizing, like, dude, for like the place someone has to be in to like, but it's exactly what you're saying. It's like needing that output. It's needing to output put that energy, or it's needing to use that energy somewhere. And some people create a YouTube video and some people comment a hateful comment, but it's that desire to create something. It's that desire to be heard, exactly what you said. And haters and the positive comments, they want to be heard, they want to be seen, they want to connect. And I mean, there's so many ways to do that. I mean, I watch a lot of YouTube videos and I also post a lot of YouTube videos, and it's that balance. Do you consume YouTube as well? And what's like been your balance of consumption and posting?
I do. So when I before I started, I used to consume a shitload of YouTube, especially during that period of time where I was thinking about starting a YouTube and I was like using a lot of drugs. I would spend almost my entire day just watching YouTube videos. A lot of it being self-improvement stuff and people like
'Cause it
Stephen
makes you feel
Cole.
good, right?
It does. And then I never did anything about it until like my life circumstances forced me to. But yeah, I just keep getting that dopamine hit, coming back to it, getting motivated, doing nothing about it, or doing something, but not staying consistent with it. And so I used to watch a shit ton, long story short. And now I do watch YouTube, but it's almost all just like I don't necessarily watch it for value, so to speak. Like I watch it more to see what other people are saying, hear the discourse in like the niche that I'm in, and use that kind of as content ideas. But as far as like getting outside the
100%.
niche and watching other stuff, not really.
Yes, you would say your mindset is definitely like it's more of like a productive thing than that like
Yeah,
kind of self-help, like yeah, like self-help is like, it's like watching without an action versus like watching like, cool, I'm getting inspired, I'm gonna do this next. It's a very different way to
yeah,
watch or consume, right?
yeah. I mean, there's a difference between coming into something with an intent of what you're going to learn or just coming in for entertainment and like, oh, what's the next motivation boost I can get? Sometimes it's okay to do that. Like people get lonely. Sometimes it's okay to just listen to a podcast or something to get yourself out of that frame of mind. But if you're doing it all the time, like you got to evaluate yourself. Why am I really doing this? And why am I not actually taking actions to change my situation? Why am I always just resorting to this?
100%. I think, yeah, one of the biggest things with anyone in their growth is getting in touch with yourself, with your body, and like understanding why you do the things you do, why you eat the things you do, why you do anything that you do, because you're doing it because it's giving you something, right? Even eating a chocolate bar, it's giving you a boost of, but it's just understanding like why do you feel you need that boost? And like even for myself, like I was super overweight. I was about 300 pounds, and I ended up like I gained 100 pounds in 2 years, and then I lost 100 pounds in 2 years. That's kind of my like fitness journey, or the main peak of it. But it's like that wouldn't have happened if I was fully present with my body, right? And like fully in that moment, and just like, but it's an escape, and it's a running away, and it's not wanting to be fully present, right? But as I'm going on, it's like, yeah, who do I want to be? What do I want to be? And if that's what I want to be, then my actions need to back that up, right? And it's just trying to it's a journey of becoming a man of my word, and it's a journey of, but it's even understanding what is my word, and it's like, am I saying what I truly want? Because if that's what you want, then it should be easy. But I think so many people like are they want to be ripped, but is that really what you want? Maybe that's not what you want. Maybe that's not everyone's goals. And I mean, maybe you could even speak into that. Maybe not everybody wants a six pack, and maybe not everybody wants to put in what it takes. And like maybe, yeah, someone's watching this and they're maybe not in the best shape, or be your advice for them.
Yeah. So, like you said, not everybody wants to be rich. Um, but there's a certain extent where you got to embody whatever you want to become. And that's why I still do fitness coaching, is because I feel like my message is bigger than fitness. But if I just if I market myself as a mindset coach or a lifestyle coach, like what am I really helping people with? One of the best places that you can start if you want to elevate yourself, man or woman, is to get in touch with your body. And that doesn't mean you have to be a six pack or have to have a six pack, but like you got to start cleaning up your diet, eat the foods that are going to serve you and put you in that high frequency state. You got to get into a consistent workout routine, whether that be strength training or whether that be running, but whatever you do, you got to be consistent with it. And that's step number one in self improvement. So if you're watching videos like these, podcasts like these, you should be in some sort of fitness routine, point blank. You should be in some sort of diet routine, point blank, period. I forget what your original question was.
Just to quickly add on to that, like I think it's exactly what you're saying. Consistency is so important. That's why it's important. Like start slow, like start where you're at. But more than that, like you need to make it enjoyable for yourself. I think, like whether you're going to gym, like for me, I make going to gym really enjoyable. By I listen to good music. I've gotten to know like a lot of the people at my gym. So it's even quite a social thing for me to go to gym. Like it's you got to make it enjoyable for yourself, and maybe not everybody's goal is fitness, but everybody's goal should be fitness. Everybody's goal should be life and to live a longer, happier life. Whether that's just walking consistently, maybe you enjoy walking with a podcast, or you got to make it enjoyable for yourself because this is a lifestyle thing at the end of the day, and you got to find what works for you, and everybody's different. And maybe you enjoy jujitsu, or maybe you enjoy sports, or but whatever it is, you got to find something because yeah, this life is a participation sport, not a spectator sport.
Mm-hmm. I think you hit the nail on the head there. And that reminds me of your original question, which was for somebody who's not in the best shape, some good advice for them. Like you said, you got to turn it into a part of your lifestyle. Like people, I know people get really afraid because they're like, oh my God, do I have to do this for the rest of my life? Do I have to work out for the rest of my life? It's like, yes, you do, but you're going to love it once you actually get into it. So you got part of your lifestyle. And sometimes you can be working towards a goal. You can lose 50 pounds, 75 pounds, but there's times where it's here and there, like walks, like diet, basic stuff like that. You got to turn it into a part of your lifestyle and not just have it be something that's compartmentalized to where
What
it's,
role does nutrition play in your fitness philosophy, and do you follow any specific diet?
yeah. So good question. Um, it really depends. So the perfect diet for anybody is what you're going to stay most consistent with. Now, once you find something that you can stay consistent with, that's when you can start experimenting with different stuff and seeing what really works for you. But for people at the start, like what I have my clients do is I have them track their macros because that gives you an understanding of what you're actually taking into your body. Because if I just put a meal plan on somebody, that's going to it's going to give them something that they can follow and get results, but it's not going to give them this frame of knowledge where they can make long-term results even after they get off my program. I need them to know, like, people need to know what they're taking into their body, what the nutrients are, and the type of things that they're eating, and understand how to structure a diet to whatever their goals are and whatever types of foods they like to eat. So me personally, what I do now is I follow a diet that's basically meat, fruit, and eggs. I don't know if you're familiar with Paul Saladino, but that's the type of diet I follow. It's called an animal-based diet. It's like I eat some vegetables here and there, but the majority of my diet is lean meats, ground beef, steak, chicken thigh, salmon, stuff like that. And then I have a good amount of fruits as like my primary carb source. But in terms of just like how it fits into my lifestyle, I'm not like super restrictive on my diet or anything. And I also don't put an overemphasis on it. Like a lot of people overcomplicate diet and they're like, I got to find all these recipes and do all these things. But my opinion on nutrition is you find some whole foods that you like, put a couple good seasonings on them, you figure out a way to make it taste good, and then you just do that over and over and over. And if you're able to stay consistent with it that way, what I've found is you're going to have a much greater appreciation for your food because a lot of people look at food as a source of pleasure and they always want to switch it up. And that's kind of like the consumer society that we live in. People love to eat out. People love novelty. In my opinion, the greatest appreciation that you could have for food, the greatest relationship that you can have from food is when you just eat the same things over and over because you're going to find joy in eating the same things. And it's going to like make you realize that you don't really need all that novelty. Like you just need good whole foods that nourish your body and make you feel good, not only physically, but mentally. And you're going to be in a much better spot.
And and I think probably a big part of that, exactly what you said, that consistency gives you data to then track. Like, hey, does this make you feel good or not? And if it does make you feel good, I think you kind of start to create a mind food connection that then you can start to trust your cravings. I'm actually craving some protein today. Maybe you can speak into that. Like, how has your mind food connection, if I'm inventing a term, how's that journey
No,
been?
that makes perfect sense. My mind food connection. Well, I always say, like, I really believe that if you're not craving protein, then your craving is kind of fake. And it's kind of, you're eating just because you're bored, basically. A lot of people have those cravings like, oh, I want to eat some sweets, or I want to eat like some chips, some simple refined carbs. And in my opinion, that's kind of just like, if that's you and you find yourself in that position a lot, try taking those foods out of your diet completely and replacing them with like fruits and vegetables. And after like a week or two of doing that, you're going to find that you crave those foods way less. And that's just proof that that craving
Mm,
is not really real. And it's kind of just an addiction to food. So, fuck, what was the original question?
is that food mind connection?
Oh, yeah. So it's that. A lot of it is like the type of foods that you eat are going to dictate what sort of cravings that you have. And then my mind food connection, like even as I was eating healthy for a long period of time, I still kind of had this addiction to food where I was eating a lot of carbs, like a lot of rice, a lot of potatoes, so quote unquote healthy foods alongside, like my proteins and stuff like that. But I would still find myself like having random cravings and stuff. And then around March of this year, I basically did I did Ramadan and I started fasting. I started implementing some fasting and it was really tough for me at the start, but it taught me a lot of this stuff. Like a lot of my cravings were fake. So I think for me, fasting was a good tool for somebody who's not as structured with your diet. The biggest thing that you can do at the start is just get consistency. Because if I tell somebody who's overweight to start fasting, what's going to happen is they're going to fast and then they're probably going to overeat thereafter. And that's just going to mess up your relationship with food even
I've
more. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there, done that. I once fasted on water for like 10 days, I think. Then I ate like noodles afterwards, which like wasn't like too bad and stuff, but it was still a fascinating experience. I mean, yeah, fasting, I think the biggest thing that like I learned from that is like we eat so much out of habit, you know? And like that's the reality is like when I was fasting, I was quite overweight. Like I would be fine. And like that's the whole point of fat in the first place. Like I saw there was this one guy, the longest recorded fast was like a year long, like a medical supervised fast. But the point is, like, if you really wanted to lose weight, you could, as long as you're just safe and like make sure you're all good. But bigger than that, I think so many people are just playing this losing game where they're eating so much and then, oh, I'm gonna exercise. But you can't outrun a bad diet, or you can't outrun the fork, I think. That's a good saying.
Yeah, that's a fact. A lot of it is a mindset, and it's almost like it's more of an addiction than it is.
Mm,
Um, it's like a food addiction, basically, for a lot of people. A lot of people use food
mm.
similar to how drug addicts use drugs. And people don't like when I use that
Which
comparison. It's kind of true. And it's just, it's more, food is almost like a more widely accepted drug. But if you think about it, it kind of accomplishes the same thing.
yeah. It's either an incredible opportunity of self-love, investing in yourself, investing in the future, putting the best quality fuel in the vehicle, which is your body, which if you are, yeah, well, yeah, if you, which is like with me, I'm an entrepreneur. It's like I am the business. Like if I'm not eating good, well, then the business will suffer too. And like, it's just everything that we do is either an act of self love or self hate, or it's either striving towards life or striving towards death. And it's really, like you said, taking it that seriously. I mean, obesity is tragic. It breaks my heart. Like, how many people are overweight? For what, man? Like, yeah, and it's so tricky. Like, why, like, maybe what's your thoughts on that? Like, why do you think there's so many people that are obese, and how do we? And I mean, I know it has to come from people. Like, you have to want to change. But sure, okay, and you eventually have to reach that point. Like, you have to want to change. But it's just sad that so many people get to that point. Yeah, it's a tricky thing because like things have to get worse before they get better, or like you have to be motivated to want to make a change.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe
Before I,
why do you think there's so much obesity, and like how do we? Yeah, I mean that's exactly what you work in, is like kind of helping make a fit a healthier world, you know. And I think through your YouTube channel, it's crazy the reach you can have and just the impact you can have. Sure, you can do one-on-one coaching and you can really change those few lives deeply. But even with YouTube and just like sharing your authentic story, you never know who's watching that video and they're like, nah, I'm going to gym today. And maybe they never watch another video of yours today or ever, but they went to gym that day and then maybe they keep on going. And it's just amazing, like the impact you can have on people's lives. But back to the obesity.
yeah. So before I answer that, what do you think is causing obesity? Because I've never been obese before, but it sounds like you've been obese or very close to it.
Yeah. I mean, my stepmother put it quite well. Like no one ever got overweight like eating bananas. Like it's a random example, but it's like eat as many like bananas as you want, or there's so many like healthy foods you can. And that's the thing. It's not about limiting how much you eat. It's about eating more of the right foods. Right? It's not about eating less. So many people are like just make their portions smaller. It's the whole starvation thing, and it's even I'm gonna go fast and then binge. No, don't even. No, it's actually good to almost like eat a lot of the healthy foods and start to like get those foods in your diet, and it's definitely like a reprogramming of your brain and like it's just changing that connection, right? Your brain's like, oh, I'm hungry, have this. It's like having other things. And I think a good thing to do, one of my biggest tips would be like having snacks ready, but healthy snacks. Uh, like have even foods that don't even taste that good. It's like have whatever asparagus in your bag. If you're really starving, you can eat that, but kind of have these like have an order to things. Okay, cool. If I'm gonna eat something, I'm gonna start with eating this healthy thing first. If I still feel like eating that bag of chips afterwards, maybe that's a different discussion. But like, am I hungry, or exactly kind of just understanding like what is it really? Do you really want that bag of chips, or yeah?
Or are you just escaping some sort
And
of,
one thing, yeah, or are you eating, to fuel your body, or are you eating to really trash your body and is like as a kind of it's an act of self-hate is kind of how I'm starting to see it now. And just kind of how serious I'm seeing it is because it's like we gotta take this seriously. This is our one body, you know? Like I believe like God gave us this body, like we gotta honor it. This body is sacred. Like we're doing the best that we can with what money we have, with what's available, but it's there's always a healthier choice that can be made. And I think it's just every day showing up, making that best choice that we can. But it's starting small and it's starting gradual and it's definitely adding good foods and then sure removing those bad foods. But like start by eating more of the good stuff, you know, and then you will find you will crave the bad stuff less, I think.
Yeah, 100%. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, I think. But just as a start, if people switch their diet, if anybody that was obese switched their diet to eating 100% whole foods and nothing else, guaranteed they would lose weight. Guaranteed they would probably lose almost all that weight that makes them obese, and they would get down to a healthy body fat. But at least they would get a start on that, because the type of foods that you're eating, a lot of this processed shit that we're eating nowadays, it fucks with your hormones, it fucks with your sense of hunger, and it's chemically produced to be addictive towards you. It's not natural to put in your body. If you think back a couple hundred years back, there were probably very little obese people for this reason. So if you switch your diet to 100% whole foods,
Survival of the fittest.
yeah. And like you said, like if you go and eat asparagus first, if you eat a ton of asparagus or you eat a ton of bananas or something, and then you question, am I still really hungry? That's going to help you reform your relationship with food and understand like a lot of these foods that you go towards are just an addiction. It's not because you have genuine hunger. It's because you're bored or you're trying to escape some sort of pain or you're using it as a vice, basically. So there's that. I think obviously we have food easily accessible, especially in the States. It's everywhere. Can't go 4 or 5 blocks without seeing a McDonald's. You can't go to any venue without, everything is tied to food here. It's like you eat while you're doing everything. Why do you have to be eating while you're doing every single thing? While you're watching the football game, while you're watching the sporting event? Not everything has to be done while eating. Like, so there's that. But I think probably one of the biggest things then is just lack of knowledge. Like, I don't know what your experience was like, but I'm sure once you figured out how to actually eat, it was simple from there and it was pretty easy. There's so much, like, if anybody who's overweight or just way underweight is watching this right now, if you just learned how to eat properly, your life would be so much easier and you would never have to worry about this again. But there's so much, like, there's information saying this and saying that, and they're saying conflicting things now because everybody has a different opinion. Oh, eat this diet. No, this is the only diet that you can eat. And you know how people say stuff like, people say it like their truth is the only truth. But if you just understand the concepts behind what are the macronutrients that I'm eating, on top of that, I need to be eating whole foods. If you can understand, eat whole foods, and you can understand macros and calorie counting, then for 95% of those people, obesity is going to be gone. But because there's so much fad diets and people confused about what to do, they just end up doing nothing or staying consistent with nothing. And that's what leads to the lack of progress, in my opinion.
100%, man. Yeah, I mean, I think it is often like everything but the food is almost it's almost like the reason people stay obese. It's like there's a deeper issue in a lot of senses. Like for me, I had quite a rough childhood that in a lot of ways I think I was escaping through food, and I've definitely seen like a lot of obesity is also like it's a hiding away from the world. You know, there's something also, it's can be kind of isolating to be overweight in a lot of ways. Makes sense. So it's definitely, there's like a decrease in self-confidence. You may kind of spend less time out there, more time inactive, more time at home. And for me, the biggest one was staying up late at night and energy drinks and caffeine. And more than anything, kind of the caffeine was just this artificial getting of energy. Like food is how you should get your energy, and sleep. And even exercise is a way that I definitely get energy, right? And it's such a strange thing, that the fitness thing. It's like you push yourself, but eventually you get more and more energy, and then the more active you can be in the day, the better you can sleep at night, and then more energy the next day. So I think it's just these self-fulfilling prophecies that we got to make sure are positive.
Mm. It's a cycle. And like you said, for a lot of people, there's a mental health aspect to it. So it's not enough to, like, I really believe that if we gave people the knowledge of how to eat, then most obesity cases would be solved. But at the same time, you're still going to have a lot of people who, they have a deeper issue in their mental health, or they're running from
Mm.
some sort of trauma. So in that case, like, you got to work on the mindset. And like I said earlier, a lot of the same reason that people run to food is a lot of the same reason that people will run to drugs or alcohol. So
I think it's really important to understand, like, people love to ask me, how did I lose the weight? And I tell them, and it's not like they're gonna do it or anything, but I think everybody knows some basics of how to eat healthy. And I always say, it's like, you don't need a gym membership. Anyone could do push-ups. Anyone could run on the spot if you really wanted to make a change. Like, most people know what's healthy, but the better question is, why did you gain weight in the first place? Why do you eat what you eat? And in a lot of ways, it's understanding, like, hey, it makes me feel better when I'm lonely. Okay, cool. And it's realizing, like, is it really? Is it really? And even with drugs, it's like, oh, it makes me feel better, but it's like, does it really? Or does it temporarily and then throw you down? Caffeine's a good example. Like, oh, it gives me energy. Yeah, but you're building a tolerance, and or maybe caffeine's not the best example, but these things work at first. And that's the thing, is that things work at first. It's like drugs is a great example. It does make people feel good, like at first. And even food, it's gonna make you feel good at first, but it's getting past that. And it's like understanding, like, yeah, sure, that's gonna make me feel good at first, but that's not my goal. And it's like, that's not why I eat food. It's like, I eat food for that sustained, and that's why it's so important, like you said, to eat consistently. And above all, people can tell you this diet, that diet. It's about, you need to experience this for yourself. All of these are conversations, words, great, but find what works out for your body. But yeah, use some common sense, right? Whole foods is a great place to start, and protein is a great place to start, and finding what works for you. But like, try things and be consistent. And even if you do something that's bad consistently, that's still evidence. That's still data. Like, okay, cool, that's not going to work. But at least then we can start to get somewhere. So it really doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter what workout plan you start with. It doesn't matter about like what diet you start with. Even your current diet is, either it's working or it's not. Where you are currently at is either a good place or it's not. And that's a good place to start. But insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So whoever's watching this, make a change, however small. Try things. Life is an experiment. What are some experiments you've had in your life, Finbar? Have you tried a lot of different things in your journey of life, or maybe your fitness journey?
hell yeah, I've tried a bunch of different stuff. Obviously, trying out with YouTube. Uh, when I started fitness, that was an experiment for me. When I started lifting weights, uh, did a bunch of drugs, so I guess you could say I experimented with that. I've
And what did you
experimented.
find with that?
There's no fulfillment in it. There's never any fulfillment in it. My personal opinion is that all drugs are an escape from your current situation. They're an escape from your reality. And because that, they're never going to improve your situation. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm saying. It's like realizing, like, yeah, they're gonna make you feel good, but it's that short term. It's like, I don't want that. I don't want that cheap dopamine. It's like, and it's like, I don't want that 6 minute abs. We live in the generation, oh, 6 minute abs. It's like, no, I don't want that because it's temporary. I want something that I can invest my time in for the rest of my life, and I know it's gonna lead somewhere. And for me, that's yoga. For me, that's running. For me, that's spending time in nature. For me, that's jujitsu. For me, that's gym. And it's that slow rewards, but it's something that I can consistently invest time in and put that energy in. Because I think so many people lack places or positive places to put that energy in. You know, you gotta find interests. You gotta try new things, and variety is the spice of life. Gym isn't for everyone. There's other ways, to be healthy. It depends what your goals are, and it's really about understanding what you want. I truly believe you can have anything that you want in life, but you need to know what you want and why you want it. And
And
realize, is it your goal? Is that someone else's goal?
and back to the weight loss about that. Um, you got to turn it into, you got to try different things, and then you got to be consistent with those things. And the way that you stay consistent is you define your success not by the results, but by your adherence to the routine that you laid out for yourself, or the habits that you laid out for yourself. And if one thing doesn't work, if this diet doesn't work, then you move on to the next one, but only if you've been consistent. Because a lot of people will just not be consistent and then are quick to shit on something. Oh, that doesn't work. Well, how long did you do it for? 2 weeks. Were you consistent with it? Did you? No, I did it half the time. All right. Well, then you didn't really do it.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's really important to track things, and macros, like you said, is a good example. Is there any good apps you could recommend to track macros?
Yeah. MyFitnessPal, quick and easy. That's the only app I
Yeah,
recommend use.
shout out.
Yep. Give us a sponsorship.
Yeah, that actually would be that would be a fitting sponsorship for real. All right, well, the next question is, what is monk mode? And yeah, maybe yeah, that's the question. What is monk mode? I see it's your most viewed video.
Yeah. So monk mode is basically, in my eyes, it's basically cutting off all negative influences in your life, whether that be drugs or alcohol or any sort of people in your life that are weighing you down. And for some of us, that's going to be basically everybody in your life. So monk mode is essentially cutting off everybody in your life that's, not really serving you to become the person that you want to become. And there's a lot of debate on it because a lot of people think that it's unhealthy. It's like isolation. And my opinion is that it's not for everybody. And I think there's circumstances where isolation is bad, but there's also circumstances where it's good. If you're really prepared to go all out on yourself in your environment, the people that you're around, the places that you're going are not serving you, sometimes you got to cut back on all that. Just put your head down, go to work or go to your job, or, maybe you're even working two jobs, or you're growing a business in the background. You have some sort of side hobby. You're just going from work, gym, side hobby, second job, whatever, back home. And you're just doing that on repeat. That's
Mm,
basically what mode is, in my opinion. But also, not to go too far off on a side tangent, I think another critical part of that is when you have this time alone, you really got to dial in on your self-improvement habits, quote unquote. Really, I would call it more like mental health
mm,
habits, like your journaling, your mindfulness meditation, um, stuff like that. Because if you have all this time alone, the last thing that you want to happen to you is for your mind to just completely bully you, because that's what's going to result in self-destruction. Monk mode can be a huge process of self-growth where you can just accelerate your self-growth in like a very short period of time, or it can be one of the worst things to do if you're not really focusing in on your mindset.
yeah, yeah. That actually kind of reminds me of like even my 10-day Vipassana retreat. Like to do something like that, you gotta be doing that for yourself. You know what I mean? You gotta be doing that out of love, and you gotta be intentional with it. Like you didn't come there to play games. You know what I mean? And when you're going through it, you gotta remember like you signed up, and like you're there because you want to get to that other end, whatever it might be. Whether you give yourself 90 days to create this business or 90 days to get in a certain shape. And I think one thing that can actually help with that is recording videos for yourself when you're feeling your most motivated. Because people love to get motivated. I'm feeling good. We're going to change. This is our year. Okay, cool. You got that energy now. You got that attitude. I love that. Record a video now, speaking to yourself in maybe a week, 2 weeks, who might not feel motivated. Like, what are you going to say to him? Because that's the person who's gonna make it through. That's the person who needs to make it through. And people need to have that vision. It's like, and envisioning those worst moments. Like a good example, there's this really great guy named Mike Posner. He walked across America, but before he started, it was a 6-month walk. He would envision, what will I do if I get my leg breaks? Like, okay, cool. I'm gonna walk through the process and just envisioning all those kind of like worst cases and planning for them and having, okay, cool, if this happens, now I'll do this. It's like things are gonna happen. Like there's gonna be days you might not be able to make it to gym. Maybe your car breaks down, whatever it might be. Cool. Well, if that happens, I'm just gonna go for a walk instead. Okay, if that happens, I'm gonna do push-ups instead. Whatever the case may be. But I mean, monk mode is definitely interesting. And I think really some people need that extremism. But I think it's just being mindful, like, hey, is this just another trend, just another thing to do? Or, yeah, are you going to be intentional with it? And I think that self-talk is super important.
For sure. For sure. For sure.
Is there anything you could add more on like journaling? Like, what has been your journey with journaling? Would you say like you journal more through video format? Because I definitely resonate with that. Like I've recorded so many videos that like often will never reach social media, and that's like really powerful for me when I can just be like honest, like, or even I'll record a voice note. And I think that's also what people gotta understand. Like journaling doesn't have to just be writing. I think there's a time and a place like writing's awesome. But sometimes it's just being honest with yourself through words, through a video as well. And maybe what's your journey been through with journaling?
That's interesting. And I might actually take that and do that after, I might do that moving forward because I've actually never done that. I've done it unintentionally in recording videos that I was like, I don't want to put this out because I either got too personal or I said something that might be kind of offensive or, whatever reason. I've recorded a lot of videos that I just never posted. But it wasn't intentionally for the reason of like, okay, let me get these thoughts off my head and then come back to them. But I think that might be a good idea to record some videos because, you can write a lot in a journal, which I journal every single day in a notebook, probably spend about 20 or 30 minutes doing that every morning. But
Wow.
to be able to talk to yourself is in like, you can read words, but to actually hear yourself and see like the mannerisms on your face, see the way that you said things, and see like the actual emotions that you were experiencing in that point in time, I feel like could be a lot more impactful.
100%. I think there's something so powerful in it. And I think for me, that's exactly what my YouTube channel is kind of always been in some ways. Is like, I'm making these videos for me. Because one thing I've struggled with a lot of my life is memory. But like, more than that, I struggle a lot with mood swings. But bigger than that, it's like, if I'm feeling good, I want to capture that so that I can tap into that and come back to that. And it's also like, why am I feeling good in this moment? And it's often the reason I feel good today is pretty much because of what happened in the last 3 days. How did I eat the last 3 days? What did I do the last 3 days? How did I spend those last 3 days? But for me, like recording videos is just an opportunity to check in with myself. Like, yeah, exactly. Like, just like, where am I in this moment? But I think,
So
and it's like, if you can talk directly to yourself, potentially your future self or your past self, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, not to cut you off, bro. Sorry to break your chain of thought, but
No worries.
you said your mood is dictated by like what you've done the past 3 days. Do you think it's that, or do you think that you can consciously step into a particular frame of mind regardless of what's happened in the past couple days or in the past couple hours?
I'm not so sure. Maybe you could. What's your thoughts on that first?
Well, I'll say it's extremely hard to do this, especially if you spent your last couple days, didn't get any sunlight, didn't work out at all, ate like shit, beat your meat, you using drugs. If you did all that, it can be very hard to put yourself in a positive frame of mind. But there's also going to be a lot
And
of
I think it's
times,
also realizing like, or even with that example, is like you shouldn't feel good, right? And it's also
right?
maybe just realizing that.
But there's also going to be a lot of times where, maybe you did everything right and you still don't feel good. And in those moments, I think it's extremely important to be present. And I feel like that's where really feeling, that's where positivity comes from. Like you can look back at what you've done, or you can look back at the past, but until you can really be in the present, that's when you're really going to feel like at peace. And that doesn't take anything per se. You can do things to make it easier to make yourself more present, but it doesn't take anything necessarily to be present.
Do you have any tips to be more present, or like what's your journey been with meditation as well?
Yeah. So that right there, meditation, and I'm not a meditation expert. Um, I probably meditate for like a couple minutes every day, but I'm definitely not an expert on it. But that's been something that's been key for me. Also, just like you can't just use meditation in vacuum. Like you can't just say, hey, I'm going to go meditate and check this off the box. You have to actively apply that to your life. When you notice that your mind starts to drift, or you notice like somebody saying something to you that's getting you emotional, that's getting you worked up, can you recognize your thoughts, calm yourself down, and bring yourself back into the present moment? So I would say, yeah, meditation really. There's been a couple other books that I've read that I feel like have helped me kind of get into my body and out of my head as well. Uh, One of the ones that comes to mind right now is called this book, The Art of Embodiment for Men. And that book recently for me has been pretty.
Was just taking down that book name. Sounds cool. And yeah, I think it is a journey of like, for me, what has actually been a recent one is like every time something unexpected happens, I mean, often kind of like the negative thing is like, oh, but it's an opportunity for meditation, you know? And it's like taking it as an opportunity to breathe. I mean, the other day I had like such a terrible like interaction at like at a parking garage. Like it was just a whole thing. But it's like that is the meditation right there. It's like how can I just be present and how can I just focus on my breath when things are stressful or when things are that's exactly when you need to be breathing and that's exactly when you need to be present and meditating. And right, everything is a meditation, but especially extreme sports, but life and stressful situations are the extreme sports, I think, as well.
Facts. A lot of people will just hear that and be like, oh, I got to do my meditation. I got to do my yoga. But then when somebody gives them the wrong drink at Starbucks, they flip out and have a breakdown. And that's can't do that. That, like you said, those are the moments where you need to get into your body and not of your head.
Is there anything else you'd like to touch on, or any closing thoughts from your side?
Nah, man, what's next for you?
What's next for me? I want to go visit my dad. So my dad lives in Bali. My stepmom is a health coach, so they're big on that. They're big on fasting. I mean, I think my dad's done some 90-day fasts in his day, 90-day grape juice fasts. I mean, I don't know, the whole health and all that sounds like a lot of sugar and fructose and stuff. But there's different things out there, and that's his whole thing. But anyway, I want to go to visit him in Bali, so I'm grinding work, saving up. Yeah, I'm just wanting to work online, travel,
So
grow
are
the
you full time?
podcast. Say again.
I said, are you full time with the YouTube?
The YouTube's definitely like a side thing, and I've also seen like what a luxury that is as well. Is like, eh, I think a lot of it's a tricky, yeah, it's a tricky transition, right? Like, what's always been nice for me is like it's been a side thing, and sure, there has been some blessings that have come from it for sure. I mean, social media is a beautiful way to network, and you meet some incredible people and some work opportunities as well. But it hasn't been like directly through that. It's more been like meeting people through that, and then yeah, I mean, I've thought about kind of getting into coaching and stuff, but yeah, it's a tricky journey to monetize a YouTube channel, I think.
Hmm.
But my main thing is I'm working an online sales job at the moment, and then I have a business in digital marketing, which I've had since 2018 with kind of ups and downs, but taking kind of trying to be more patient with myself and also working more for other people to realize like I want to learn from other people. It's like, sure, I can learn a lot by just having my own business, but you can also learn a lot working with other people and also like working for other people as well. So it's just kind of having that patience with myself and realizing the goal isn't necessarily like just to have my own thing. The goal is to collaborate. The goal is to learn from others. And yeah, so I'm really where I'm at is just to learn and to grow and try things. I don't want to try things, man. I want to try everything before I die.
Hmm.
What's next for you, brother?
What's next for me? Just business wise, continuing to grow this fitness coaching business, and probably turning it into in the future more into like an entire self development program, not so centered around fitness still being a part of it, but another part of it being the self development stuff, which is something that I still need to learn for myself. And that's why I haven't brought it in fully to the program. But business wise, that personally, improving my relationships, a lot of it, because
Mm,
I was doing a long period of monk mode. And while that was good for me, a lot of it was fueled by like, all right, I got to prove people wrong and I got to do this. And now I'm more focused on, all right, I'm living at home. I got to improve my relationship with my parents. I would like to get out there back into the dating scene, get that going, make some new friends, especially as I become more financially secure and just expand my horizons, figure out what I actually want out of life. That's not just money and that's not just short-term pleasure.
beautiful, brother. Yeah, relationships is a that's a lifelong beautiful dance. But I think people at the end of the day are mirrors, and I think we find ourselves through others, and we find who we want to be, who we don't want to be, who we want to be around, who we don't want to be around. And I'm
Just read,
wishing you all the best with your journey, brother.
oh
Yeah, go
yeah.
for it.
No, I was just gonna say that reminded me something. I just read something in a book yesterday that said love is finding yourself or finding a part of yourself in another person. So that just had me thinking about that. I guess that was kind of a cheesy little quote there, but no, I appreciate
Bro,
you
well,
having.
I hope you find that, and I hope everybody listening finds that as well. And they can find you in links in the description. And thanks for your time, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you.